This video is Buttonhole Stitch. I made quite a few samples of this one so you could really see the full range of what you might be able to do. It was really fun to practice and get a bunch of different textures. So this down here is the basic buttonhole stitch. It's going to create a straight line with lines coming off of it at a 90-degree angle. And you can vary those lines to create little triangles or other shapes, simple little curves, which is kind of a fun effect. You can also do something like this where it's following a curve on the buttonhole stitch side and they're all coming out of a central point. This one has two buttonhole stitches opposite each other so that they're nested together. Here I have buttonhole stitches. This is the outer edge of it and the straight lines are all coming to the inside of this curve. So you can do a scallop shape. Here they're all radiating out from this point to create a heart or a flower petal. Same thing here, we came around the edge, not quite back to a single point, and they're spaced fairly far apart. These ones are just simple circles with all the spokes coming out of a central point, and then the leaf is radiating out from one point at the bottom and following the outline. So this one is very similar to this one, except that the stitches are packed much more closely together and you can see it does a different texture. So as you can see, depending on the spacing of your stitches and whether you angle them from a single point, a line, or around a circle, you get very different effects. To make a buttonhole stitch, bring your thread up on the side of your design where you want the solid edge of your buttonhole stitch. Make a loop and hold it open with your other fingers. You're going to take the first stitch directly across from there, or if you're going to a center point at the center. And for this stitch, you're going to come back up very close to where you started, but inside the loop. And you're going to pull that loop right there. So now it's made this little loop around your thread. You're going to make your next loop, take your stitch down, and bring it back up straight across, or even angled just slightly in, closer to your previous stitch, because as the thread wraps around, it is going to seem just a little bit angled if it's directly across. So down, back up inside the loop, and pull that loop gently taut. And if you want to start angling them, you just go down in the same hole, if you're doing, say, a circle, and you'd start coming up at your next point, and you'd start to get those angled lines. So this can be really fun. Just play with it and see what kind of shapes you want to fill in or what kind of patterns you want to make. This is good for borders and flowers and little tiny designs, so you can really go wherever you want with it. When you're done, just take a stitch on the other side of that loop and secure it, and you can tie off. For the circular sampler, I created buttonhole flowers here in purple, and as you can see in the center, there's a thread going each direction. That's because this linen is a little bit loosely woven and it was very stretchy. So going out of the center was much more difficult. It was creating a very large hole as you pulled the stitches taut. So I just worked with it and made it a feature instead of a flaw, and angled each quarter of the stitches through one hole on either side of these threads so that it left that little lattice work in the center. For the alphabet sampler, I'm thinking about doing this letter N with a series of buttonhole stitch flowers for the main parts, with little lazy daisy leaves coming off for where the serif bits of the font would be.